Revolt is a simulation racing game featuring remote control cars. It was released in 1999 for the Nintendo 64, PlayStation, Dreamcast, along with the 2012 port to mobile devices and a Steam release in 2022. It was developed by Acclaim Studios London and published by Acclaim Entertainment. I never knew this game existed up until Fab put out his video talking about it, as he's beating every N64 game. I watched a few minutes of it and immediately stopped because it seemed intriguing and I didn't want to spoil the gameplay for myself in case I decided to play it. And look where that led me. This game has a bunch of awesome cars that are classified from rookie up to pro ratings. Each car has a different set of stats that are based around speed, acceleration, and mass. There's electric, glow, and special classes too, which only affects the car's engine sounds. Also, some cars run in four-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, or rear-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive powers all the wheels, which helps give the car more power and acceleration, while rear and front-wheel drive only powers the front and back wheels. Revolt is so heavily detailed, and it'd take me forever to explain everything, so if you want to go more in-depth on the specifics of each car, I'll leave a link in the wiki in the description. There's tons of different options that cater to many different playstyles, and amongst these cars, one stands out above the rest. A car that's so laughably bad that few would dare to choose it. Enter Pest Control, arguably considered to be the worst car in the entire game. It's a semi-pro vehicle that has some of the best speed in the game, but also has the worst acceleration, along with being a heavier car. But it doesn't stop there. Pest Control's handling is horrendous. Turns with this car need to be quick and careful. If you even so much as hold a turn for even a second, you're guaranteed to spin out, and recovering from that is a headache. With such a wide cast of awesome cars to choose from, it makes almost no sense to ever pick Pest Control. But no one in their right mind would ever do something so foolish. Who wants to suffer through a game that encourages you to pick the best cars as you progress through it? Oh geez, that's me. Well, I guess someone had to do it. So let's see if you can beat Revolt using only Pest Control. For this challenge, I'll be completing all of the championship cups on the console mode. Revolt has a handful of different releases, but I chose to play on the vanilla Steam version of the game. Traditionally, Pest Control has to be unlocked while playing through the game. However, if you enter your name as Carnival, you can unlock every single car right at the start. I don't always do this, but I felt like the experience would be much more entertaining starting out completely blind. Before I get down to business, I'll take a brief moment to talk about how the races and championship mode are played. Every track has a set amount of laps. This can range from 3 all the way to 10. The tracks are mostly open areas that have a set path to go on as shown by arrows. It can be a little confusing at first, but you get used to it. During the races, you'll find thunderbolts, otherwise known as pickups. They're scattered all throughout the tracks and will give you items. Fireworks are homing attacks that will hit the nearest car when a target shows up on their back. They can miss if you're too far away, or you can get caught up in the blast if you fire it too close. Water balloons are skill shot attacks that can slow down and disorient the car you hit. The ball bearing drops a gigantic ball behind you. Hitting it will knock you around or put you in a dead stop. Ball bearings also stay on the track for 30 seconds after they drop. Bombs are terrible. If you get one, your car turns black and you have 10 seconds until you explode. However, you can pass the curse on to another car if you touch them. Clone pickups are explosive. They're pretty much identical to real pickups, so it's really hard not to hit them, unless they're placed in obvious spots. The electro pulse puts electricity all over your car for 10 seconds. If you're close enough, you can zap nearby cars and completely disable them for 3 seconds. The turbo battery increases your speed for 10 seconds, and can also negate the effects of the electro pulse. It also gives you increased maneuverability, but for some cars, this can be more of a hindrance. Shockwave fires a burst of air onto the track that can flip other cars. It can also bounce off of walls as well. The global pulse is a star that will disable every car for about 3 seconds when used. It's the only item that can be picked up on its own throughout each track and is typically hidden in an out-of-the-way area. And finally, we have my least favorite item, the oil slicks. When used, you drop a little puddle of oil behind you. If you touch it, you'll be slipping and sliding every which way under the sun for a short time. Like the ball bearing, it also stays for 30 seconds after being used. Each cup requires you to finish a race in third or better to advance to the next one. If you don't, you have up to 3 retries to use throughout the entire cup. Once they're gone, it's back to the beginning if you lose again. You're given points upon finishing in the top 3. 10 points goes to first, 6 to second, and 4 for third. Other cars can also be awarded points by placing 6th or better. It's not much, but it can be a blessing to see a car that's ahead of you in the standings get bamboozled and only get 1 point after a race is finished. All the points are tallied up at the end of the cup, and whomever has the most wins. Now that the basics are covered, it's on to the Bronze Cup. What happened? Oh, you move with the D-pad? Oh my god. Even at this point, I don't think it fully clicked with me that this wasn't the silly cartoonish racing games that I'd become accustomed to. Before playing, I read that pest control was bad, but I had never experienced anything like this. The car turns like it's got sudsy soap bars for wheels trying to drive on wet ice. I was in disbelief. It also didn't help that the default settings on my Xbox controller had the car accelerate and turn using the D-pad. That wasn't gonna work for me. So I remapped the controls and messed around in the practice mode for a while to get a better feel for this car. After some practice with the new controls, I went back to the Bronze Cup to try my hand at the first race, and Toys in the Hood won. I'm doing it! I'm doing it! Oh, I was doing it. I continuously turned with the grace of a slice of butter that was being moved around on a hot pan, and it was finally beginning to sink in that this run was no joke. I couldn't keep up with anyone, and from what I understand, the Bronze Cup starts you out against cars in the lower tiers, so it's supposed to be somewhat easy, especially when pest control is considered to be semi-pro. I can only imagine the devs who created this car in their secret evil lab, rubbing their hands together and cackling, having given birth to Slippin' Jimmy's monster. But you don't have to choose this car. Not to say this was the intent behind pest control, but a lot of games from this era have had joke characters to play as for fun or to annoy your friends. You have your fun and then you move on to something better. Joke or not, it was very clear that this car was going to take a lot of skill to handle properly. My first completed run-through of Toys in the Hood 1 ended where you'd expect. My next time around, I saw some slight improvement. Look at that. Look at that. Moseying our way up. Though for a while, it really didn't get much better than 7th place. You know it's especially bad when you lose to a car called Fat Slug. Being fully locked in, I eventually pulled off a 5th place finish, being only 8 seconds behind the required 3rd place spot. This took almost 2 hours to do, and it was only the first track in the easiest cup in the game. Though, after cashing in my first class ticket onto the struggle bus for the last few hours, I'd finally see a 2nd place finish. Make it through! Make it through, baby! It's unfortunate that my ticket was round trip, because the next track is Supermarket 2. You race around a grocery store, which is a pretty sick track, except when you're immediately forced to go through a frozen section where the ground is slippery. Can you imagine playing with the most slippery car in the game and forced to drive on ice? The only reason I didn't finish in dead last was because some of the CPUs got stuck in the ice and struggled harder than I did. 6th was the absolute best I could do here. While this track is really short, the ice section was a huge hurdle to jump over. I used up all of my retries and was forced to go back to the beginning. I suppose it's better that it happened in the second track than the last. I made a few more attempts to get back to the supermarket, but it wasn't happening. So I spent a little longer practicing and switching the controls around to find out what really worked best for me. When I felt ready to give the Bronze Cup another go, I decided to play on the Junior RC mode to see if playing on an easier mode would help me learn the ways of Revolt. I was doing way better than ever before in this mode. Unfortunately, Junior RC was the equivalent of having training wheels on your training wheels. The overall speed is decreased, and the handling was far easier to control. But if anything, it at least gave me a glimpse of what the other tracks looked like. Getting first overall in Junior RC mode also unlocked the Silver Cup, but I'm not taking the easy way out on this. The double stack training wheels were off, and I felt ready to take on the competition. This time, I was performing a bit better. The turns were still kind of wonky, but for a moment in the first and second laps, I was hovering around 4th place, the best I've done yet. An oil slick in the 3rd lap put me out of commission, so I reset and got back to work. Now I was in the zone. The first lap, I kept up a nice 3rd place pace, but all good things must come to an end, and I fell victim to pro gamer moves in the 2nd lap.
Happy feet, wombo combo. That ain't Falco. That ain't Falco.
Not only did I get a bomb, but Vulcan placed a clone pickup right where I was going at the perfect time. This wombo combo took me out and I finished in 4th. A bummer, but I was still getting better. I had a triumphant return, keeping up in 3rd place again, but this time an Electropulse helped me move up into the 2nd lap. Sprinter was ahead of me, but not by too much. Eventually, I caught up and hit him with a shockwave that seemed to miss, but I think it bounced off the fence and got him in the rebound. For the first time in this track, I had the lead in the final lap. Vulcan was trailing right behind me the entire time. Right near the finish line, Vulcan ended up passing me, but another Electropulse took him out. Ooh! Oh my god, barely. Holy crap. I wasn't about to waste this next shot at the supermarket. I moved nice and slow while going through that godforsaken freezer section. A little too slow. Playing overly cautious did help me get past the freezer, but I finished in 5th and had to use a retry. A 6th place finish would follow right after that. I can only imagine getting this game as a kid and being blindsided by this level. I know in my heart of hearts, I would have never made it past here back then. My next attempt was going better than average. The final lap, I was in 3rd place, trailing right behind RC Bandit for 2nd. Getting 3rd would have been just fine with me, but RC Bandit had other plans. Oh, wait! Oh! Holy crap. There ain't no way. That little stunt actually helped me keep in 1st place, being 2 points ahead of Vulcan. I could finally advance to Museum 2 for the first time since the Junior RC mode. This track relies pretty heavily on fluid turns. A little past the beginning, there's a somewhat sharp turn you need to make to drive up an escalator. There are 2 sides to it that move up and down. I, of course, miss the up section every single time. Then there's a section where you drive through a planetarium, as long as you pass through the opening to it. This section lets you branch off into the right or left. It doesn't matter which side you take, but the constant need to turn in this area was devastating for me. Actually, Museum as a whole was nightmare fuel for pest control. Most of this track has you making turns, and there are a few spots where you can just drive forward. I was so far behind in 7th on my first try and had to use my last reset. This next attempt was more of the same. Tons of spin outs, hitting walls, and playing too safe to be able to have any chance of a top spot. So back to start I go. While I continuously grind these 2 basic tracks off this game made for children, I'll tell you all about the control setup I used to drive this monstrosity. I mapped the acceleration button to my Xbox controller's right trigger and moved around with the D-pad. To keep the car from constantly spinning out, I continuously tapped the right trigger to keep my car accelerating on and off so I wouldn't go too fast. Then, I made the lightest and quickest taps on the D-pad to make my turns, which for the most part help prevent spinouts. And that's pretty much it. You need to go fast, but moving too quickly and trying to turn will end poorly. Playing carefully and strategically was, in my opinion, the best way to make this challenge work. Within another hour of playing, I'd reached the museum 2 more times, but they were all met with the same results and very minimal improvements. So I called it a night and rested up to continue the challenge ahead. Before jumping back into the Bronze Cup, I practiced for a while to get my poor old man hands ready for another RC car simulator beatdown. This time, I actually made it back to the museum fairly quickly, after having got 2nd in Toys in the Hood and 3rd in the supermarket. I held 3rd place in the standings, but that didn't matter. I had to get past Museum 2. In my first attempt, things started out promising, but I fell back into my 7th place ways. Oh, my favorite. The wrong side. Cool oil, just, dude, oil is probably the one thing that's gonna tilt me into high heaven. After a reset, I was starting to play much better, keeping up a top 3 spot in the 1st and 2nd laps. Things were going great, and I was well on my way to get at least 3rd. Surely there would be no divine intervention to keep me from achieving my goals and dreams. That's awesome. You really just can't make these things up sometimes. I wasn't gonna stand by and let RNG get the better of me, so on my 3rd retry, I showed Museum 2 who's boss. Okay, we passed. This was a bittersweet victory, though. While I did manage to get to the final track at Botanical Gardens, no matter where I placed, even if it was first, I wasn't going to have enough points to win the cup overall. The Botanical Gardens was much more open than the museum. Plenty of spaces to get ahead and not suffer at the hands of constant turns. The scenery here was so nice and peaceful, too. If only Botanical Gardens existed outside of this video game. I played it through as best as I could, and used my last retry to ensure that I could get as much practice in on this track as possible. Not too long after, I'd find myself on the God Run. It started off with a crushing 1st place finish in Toys in the Hood. In the supermarket, I was right behind Dust Mite in 2nd place in the last lap, and had the snipe of the century with the water balloon. Oh my god. Did you see that snipe? For me at this time, 2 first place finishes were unthinkable. I carried this momentum over to the museum, where I was killing it all the way till the end of the last lap. Yikes.
Nope.
Let's go, man. With all the points I had, I could finish anywhere in the top 3 at the Botanical Gardens and graduate to the Silver Cup. I was praying for a 3rd place finish. Victory was right around the corner and I could almost taste it. I was so close on my first attempt, but a bomb struck me down right before the finish line and I got 4th. Hope wasn't lost though. I still had 3 retries left. This next try was met with a bit more oopsie daisies. I spun out more and bombs held me back yet again. Oh my god, can I live without getting a bomb? Please. I reset early, but if I closed it out, it would have been another 4th place run. My 3rd retry was an utter disaster. It felt like I was getting hit with everything in the kitchen sink. I stayed in last place for almost the entire race, but I still had one more try. One final chance to finish off the God Run in style. I stayed completely silent for the entirety of this final attempt. It was almost as if I forgot everything I knew except for Revolt and breathing. Who would have thought that shutting up and playing the game could have been the key to victory? This didn't even have to be a complete stomp in the standings, but I stole the show and got a fun message to commemorate my achievement. There was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders after this, but as mentioned before, this was only the Bronze Cup, the very first one. This challenge was far from over, and not to rain on my own parade, but I had an unfair advantage playing a card that, while handled poorly, still far outclassed the competition here. Could the same be said for the Silver Cup where the cars move up a few ratings? Well, let's find out. The first race takes us to a brand new area, Toy World 1. It's a shorter one with 6 laps in total. I've referenced this game before, but this track gives off insane Toy Commander vibes. It's filled with toys all around the track and some on it as well. You can also see some textures that are similar to that town rug that many of you might be familiar with. I kinda surprised myself getting in first place, especially since I had never raced on this track before. Or maybe I'm finally getting the hang of this game. The second race takes us back to Toys in the Hood 1, except this time it's mirrored. It was kinda strange seeing a mirror track so early in the championship mode. Usually they save those for last. There wasn't much to report here. It took a little getting used to, but I was easily able to snag second. Ghost Town followed after, and it was another brand new track. It's a wild western area where all the townsfolk seemingly left due to some dastardly outlaws. The layout here was confusing at the start. Sometimes it'd be really nice to have some visible out of bounds or wrong way barriers to help guide you. My chat was also betting earlier that this track would be my downfall on this cup, so I was expecting the worst. And the worst expected me too, because I was in 7th place in the last lap and couldn't catch up. But after retrying, I had this track down and finished in first place with little to no conflict from the other cars. This is your champion? This chicanery? The last track is in Toy World 2. It's mapped out like a bare-bones racetrack. There's little to no obstacles, the boundaries are set to help move you on a linear path, and that was pretty much it. It was so simple that you'd think that Ghost Town would have made a much better end of the cup track. I'll gladly take it though. I finished in first place again and won the Silver Cup. Compared to Bronze, this was suspiciously too easy. Surely there had to be a catch here somewhere. Anyways, the Gold Cup was now unlocked and beckoning me to compete. This cup also introduces cars that are on Pest Control's semi-pro level, so the difficulty should be ramping up a bit. I took a quick bathroom break and then started the Gold Cup out with the first track at Toys in the Hood 2. Instead of racing through the neighborhood streets, we're now racing through a home and some backyards. Also, the starting line is labeled by a pair of underpants, so that was pretty fun. It kind of puts the imagination in your head that a bunch of kids are outside racing these cars. The track itself wasn't too difficult, but I noticed that the cars in front of me had crazy leads. Look at the difference between me and Bertha while I was in second place in the third lap. It was crazy. Another car called Adion was also far ahead of me by the end of the race. I got third place, which wasn't so bad for a first try. The second race brings us back to Toy World 1, but mirrored. This track really started to showcase the CPU's increased intelligence. Remember that narrow path I mentioned before in the Silver Cup? Well now, the start of it was almost always rigged with something unavoidable, especially oil. You could just drop down the ledge and say screw it, but that can be a huge time waster and is typically not worth it. These traps kept me from placing in the top 3. The same issues carried over after resetting, but this time, an oil slick dropped me down into a global pole star. It was still too early on in the race to see how things would play out, so I held on to it until the 7th lap. This helped me get out of the 5th place rut that I found myself in for most of the race. We're treading into new territory next and on unfamiliar waters with Toytanic 1. This race, as the title implies, takes place on a boat. It's not quite like the Titanic size-wise, but don't tell the teeny little cars that. In the middle of this track, you race around a pool, which you can fall into if you're not careful. There is something else this track has that others don't. As I'm told, there's a glitch in the vanilla Steam version of this game where you start this race with a star. These are usually rarely given out to you if you're in a lower position in the race, or if you find one that's hidden throughout the track. Since this glitch was out doubted my control, I decided I would use it and pretend like the game was giving me a little treat. This race was a tough one. Even using that free star, I was not keeping any leads here, but I believe it was just first try jitters. My follow-up race was far better. I got second place, but once again found myself a fair distance away from Adion. I was in third overall, being 8 points behind Adion, who was in first. I'd basically have to get first place in the next race and hope that Adion and Bertha bomb it. The final track brings us back to a new area in the museum. This track has us racing all over the place. I found it especially hard to get down the slope. I don't know what it was, but I just couldn't reach the bottom without spinning out at least once. Then there's a segment where you have to drive underneath a dinosaur statue. While it was pretty cool, you'll have a bad time if you touch it. Typical museum rules. Much like Museum 2 from the Bronze Cup, Museum 1 had me turning all over the place, which left me spinning out of control more often than not. This track is ruthless. I can't imagine many people got past this one on their first try. After using up all my retries and not even coming close to first, I ran through some time trials in Museum 1 to prepare myself for my next go at the Gold Cup. Back into Toys in the Hood 2, everyone fell victim to Adion's might. I was keeping a good distance in second, but Adion was 5 steps ahead of me. By the time I finished the track, Adion had been done for 31 seconds. I knew that car was fast from my first run through, but this was a whole other level. Adion did it again in Toy World. Though the gap wasn't as large as before, it was still pretty big. You want to take a guess at what happened in Toytanic? Yep, Adion was crushing it once more. He was so far ahead that I had to hope another car would attack and slow him down as he was driving on by. That didn't happen though, and I couldn't have Adion getting first place again, because that would mean I'd lose, even if I got first place in the museum. So I reset the race and immediately used my star at the start to get and stay ahead. I was surprised to see that this tactic actually worked. Adion was getting a taste of their own medicine. No one could catch up to me. It felt really good to finish in first place here. Still, even with the small victory, I would need to get first place in the museum to have any chance at finishing this cup. I'd like to tell you all that I had a hero's finish. First place in the race and moving on to the Platinum Cup would have been cool to show off. Not this time, I'm afraid. Museum 1 chewed me up and spit me out on every attempt. It was almost as if this track was extra slippery, because I was sliding all throughout it. And if that wasn't bad enough, RNG decided they were also going to have their turn in kicking my butt. This was especially bad with the bombs. Great. Dude, come on. RNG, man, I swear. And then get moved into oil. Seriously, who decided that fourth place was the perfect position to be given a bomb? This would have been enough to tilt anyone off the planet and rage quit the game. But if you've seen my videos, you know that my rage and stubbornness is a driving force to completing these challenges, and I wasn't about to be taken down so easily. In a complete turn of events, I had put myself in another luxurious position of having so many points that all I had to do was get third at the museum. That wasn't going to be an easy feat though. My first 2 tries were all the same. I just couldn't hack the top 3 to close this out. Dude. Why is this happening? Yeah, I'm kind of in hell right now. But something happened on my third try. There was somehow little to no conflict. I hardly spun out, there wasn't a whole lot of attacks thrown at me or obstacles to avoid, and most of the items I got were electro pulses, which made a huge difference in the outcome of this race. I ended up in second, not too far behind from Adion. This was huge. I absolutely loathed the museum track because it was so difficult for me to navigate, but that didn't matter anymore. I won. No more museum track, no more Adion, and only 1 cup left before the challenge was over. By this point, I had been streaming for a while and it was getting pretty late. Regardless, I decided to give the Platinum Cup a try before logging off for the night, and the first track is in Supermarket 1. Also, now every car I was up against was in the semi-pro to pro rating. This was the ultimate final test. The track starts out at the front of the supermarket and then leads you into an employees-only type of back room, where you have to go up these 2 steep slopes. These slopes will kill your momentum if you don't know how to get up them properly, which of course I didn't. I stayed in 5th place, far behind everyone else in the top 4 for the whole race. There was no chance of making a run happen, at least for now. So I went to bed, still feeling hopeful and ready to finish this challenge the next day. Here we go. The final day of the challenge was here. It certainly took longer than expected, and I was well rested and ready to crush it. Per usual, I warmed up a bit in the practice mode, then headed straight for the Platinum Cup to finish the challenge for good. Or so I thought. You ever have one of those moments in life where you feel overly confident in your ability to accomplish something, only to spend the next hour on the first track of the Platinum Cup because your car can barely keep up with the pro cars and advanced AI that are better than you? No? Just me? Well, buckle up, everyone. This is shaping to be a wild ride. The Platinum Cup pulls no punches in its difficulty. It's such a huge change that the other cups can't even compare. In the hour I spent here, I hardly ever came close to finishing in the top 3. It was insanity. I never would have guessed that the Platinum Cup would be this unforgiving. The biggest issue I had with this track is that the other cars were so far ahead that I couldn't hit them with any items. They seemingly don't create their own conflict off-screen while they're ahead of you, so you need to make sure that you slow them down by any means possible early on. Eventually, exactly that would happen. Oh my god, ain't no way. I played so much of this track that I had a good round of RNG with a bunch of Electro Pulse items that kept everyone from passing me, and I hit first place. This was a big win for me. Only 4 more tracks to go, and I was leading the charge. Surely this was a sign of good things to come. The next race takes us back to the ghost town. Now we're racing around an underground mine tunnel, and around the area where bad people get put in eternal timeouts. This was the hardest race so far. Right from the get-go, everyone zoomed right past me. I didn't get any better than 7th the whole race. To give myself credit, this wasn't the first time this happened on a new track. Now that I was familiar with the layout, I'd get top 3 next time. Yeah, no, that didn't happen. That wasn't even a thought that should have ever had any business crossing my mind. Ghost Town 2 was on some crazy pills. First, going down the slope into the tunnels was an easy way to spin out and fall behind. Then to get out of it, you have to go up a slope that for some reason was the slipperiest little slope you ever did see. I was spinning out almost every time I went up this thing. It made no sense to me at all. After trying and failing a second time, I was fully prepared to go all in again. Oh, I hit quit. That was a minor inconvenience. But the good thing was, Ghost Town 2 was now unlocked and could be practiced in since I reached it in the cup. And practice I did. I hadn't mentioned this yet, but for most of my challenge runs, I hardly ever take the time to go through a level to try and master it. I just take my stupid confidence and stubbornness and power through until the game is beat. Revolt is not that kind of game. At least, not with the cars that are meant to make you crash out. The handful of retries that you get sometimes are just not enough. As obvious as it sounds, you need to practice as much as you can. When I felt like I had Ghost Town 2 down, I spent almost 3 hours playing through the Platinum Cup, hardly ever coming close to making it to the 3rd track. So I packed it up and made it next day's problem. Surely that would be my lucky day. I didn't spend any time messing around when I booted the game back up. I started off by practicing more of Ghost Town 2. I had to make it out of there. By this point, I had Supermarket 1 down to where I could place in the top 3 more often than not, but Ghost Town 2 would just not let me move on. It seemed like if I made any minor mistakes at all, I was destined to fail. I cannot stress enough how much time and effort I put in to beat Ghost Town 2. It was getting to a point where my stubbornness was starting to fail me. My eyes started to hurt from how much time I was investing staring into my monitor, and my wrist was beginning to cramp due to the quick and precise taps that were needed to make any turns with pest control. As much as I was enjoying interacting with my chat during my playthroughs, you could see pieces of me starting to break through each failed attempt at any level. But towards the end of this stream, I finally broke through. Holy sh! Finally. I didn't even care that I was low in the standings at the time. I proved to myself that all the time and effort I put into this challenge was worth something. To my surprise, the next track was Toy World 1 Reverse Mirror. This track is really easy, as long as you get ahead early on and stay ahead. It really felt like the game gave you one of those elementary school pizza parties to congratulate you midway through the cup. It wasn't much, but you were happy to get any free pizza and soda at the end of the day, much like I was happy to play through a track that I knew wasn't going to destroy me mentally. I was about to get 3rd place on my first try, but for the sake of seeing if the rest of the cup was just as simple, I restarted and got 1st place to better increase my point count. This decision put me in a tie for 1st place with only 2 tracks left to go. Maybe, just maybe, I'd be able to pull it off.
Holy fuck.
Oh no. Yep, the 4th track is a mirrored version of Museum 1, the exact track that gave me so much trouble back in the Gold Cup. Not only was this another nightmare of a track, but the game also decided it would be a good time to put some extra salt on the wound and f with me. Let's try to transfer that over. Oops. Dude, can you cool it? Why can't they ever just give me anything other than a bomb, and then this guy has one too? He knows my pain. A fourth? Or is that 3? I don't even know anymore. Oh, like clockwork, man. Like mother clockwork. Once more, I was ill-prepared to deal with this track, especially with the game somewhat having a chip on its shoulder against me with all those bombs it sent my way. The rest of my time was spent resetting in the supermarket. I think that run-through just took too much out of me. But I had finally broken barriers that I was struggling to get through, and while I was tired and defeated, I had hope that the next day would yield more fruitful results. Instead of practicing like I normally did, this time around, I just jumped right into the Platinum Cup, full of determination and hatred for what this game was putting me through, despite it being no one's fault but my own. I started out with a few resets in the supermarket, and then something extraordinary happened. It began with a 3rd place finish in the supermarket. Pretty average, nothing new there. But then I followed it up by getting 3rd place again in Ghost Town 2 after only 1 reset. Toy World was a simple and easy 1st place finish, but now I was back to the museum. My first attempt was a back and forth between me and Toyeka, with Toyeka ultimately getting 3rd place. In my second attempt, I continued to be in and out of 4th and 3rd place. In the 6th and last lap, Cougar was catching up with me, and I almost blew it. Oh my god, there ain't no way. This victory was not as sweet as I thought it would be. While it was my first time advancing to the last track, I had no idea what I was getting into, and I wasn't going to finish in first due to my low point count. There was a small chance I could tie Humma for first place, but it was very unlikely. The final track in the Platinum Cup is Toytanic 2. It's the same as the first Toytanic, but now you start at the top of the boat, and the weather goes from sunshine to rain. My first try, I was stuck in 4th. I didn't even see anyone in the top 3 for the whole race. I had 1 retry left and was doing okay in the second lap being in 3rd, but I knew that any extra time spent here was pretty much wasted since I had to be first place. While it sucked to have made it all the way to the end just to give up, it was at least somewhat comforting knowing that I could make it that far, and victory was almost within my grasp. Within another 2 hours, I had made it back to Toytanic 2 once again, this time with a 2-point lead over Adion. All I had to do was get first place or hope that somehow Adion took a dive. I was right behind Adion while in 4th. If I could just pass him and get 3rd, I may have actually been able to take this win home for good. Unfortunately, by the 3rd lap, Adion just got way too far ahead of me and I had to reset. I still had 2 retries this playthrough though. One of these attempts just had to be it, except it'd be more the same. I choked both attempts hard, and it was a soul-crushing defeat, all the way back to the start. Again. I tried to power through and get back to Toytanic 2, but it just wasn't in the cards. By this time, I had spent nearly 20 hours playing this game with almost half of the time being spent on the Platinum Cup alone. Needless to say, I was pretty upset and feeling a little sorry for myself. To make matters worse, depending on how you see it, after this attempt, I was leaving to go on a short vacation for a few days, which meant that while I would have some time to rest and relax, I'd also be losing some of the muscle memory from playing so much. Though, maybe that was for the best. I was exhausted. Some R&R might be good. Who knows? I guess I'd find out soon enough. After taking a handful of days off and flying to and fro across this great United States of ours, I was nervous but ready to win. Before starting, I went back to Ghost Town 2 to get my bearings straight. I spent a few minutes getting warmed up there, and it was right back to work. I found myself running into the usual trouble in the supermarket, spinning out, receiving bombs, as Revel has done to me time and time again. After a handful of resets, I finished in 3rd place. Good enough to continue, but probably not enough to win. Before I knew it, I was back at the museum, but I was beginning to fall apart like I usually did. Slowly but surely, my retries were being used up one by one, and I knew that I'd probably have to restart again. But I still had 1 try left. Now I had found myself back to Titanic 2, being 1 point away from getting first place behind Adeon. With no retries left, I wasn't feeling too confident that I could pull this off. But I put too much time and effort into this challenge, and I knew that I had to try. We won! Oh my god, we won! Holy crap, we did it! By 1 point! Holy crap! We beat it! When the race was over, I had no idea if I had done it or not. Huma had got first place, and Adeon was right behind me. As I watched the point counter slowly move up, it began to click. I had won by 1 point on my last retry on the very last track in the Platinum Cup. I was overjoyed. Revolt had put me through hell and back, but in the end, I came out on top. As I watched the final podium address me as the winner, the credits rolled through right after, proving that you can beat Revolt using only Pest Control. Thank you all so much for watching. This was a hell of a run on a fantastic game. Pest Control was a car that handled like nothing I had ever experienced before. Going from spinning out at almost every turn to beating the entire game, I amazed even myself. This was without a doubt the hardest challenge I had ever done. Revolt is a game that I think everyone should check out. It's a great experience with the right cars. The levels are so creative and fun to explore in the practice modes, and of course the soundtrack is some of the best I've heard. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Also, I stream all of my challenge runs live on my Twitch channel and occasionally here on YouTube. If you'd like to check that out, be sure to subscribe or follow me on Twitch. The link to my Twitch channel, along with links to my other social media accounts, can be found in the description. Thanks again for watching, everyone. See you in the next video. A handful of you guys have asked if I will do a full run with Bat Slug. Answer is like pretty much yeah.